So simplistically, Patton and Montgomery, 7th and 8th Armies land and clear Sicily. Patton then gets sent home in disgrace. We then, Operation Baytown, where the 8th Army does a big set-piece attack across into the toe of Italy. You then have the 8th of September, Operation Axis, where the Germans take command of all the Italian positions. That's where you then have, up in the north of Italy, prisoners of war on the run, joining partisan groups. And the film that I used to watch as a child, Von Ryan's Express, which I couldn't understand what it was about. That's where the Germans are rounding up Allied prisoners of war or getting them from their camps and shipping them back into German-held territory. The landing, Avalanche, so that's Mark Clark's landing with 10th Corps and 6th Corps. He has a slight wobble on the landing. The Germans fight extremely hard as naval gunfire support that helps get them ashore. But after that, he sacks the Corps commander, or Dawley of the 6th Corps, and our friend Lucas takes over. The two armies then march side by side up to the Gustav line. And so that basically takes you up to Christmas, effectively. Montgomery is then obviously stripped away and hands over to Leese, and that leaves us set ready for our 4 battles. We're now in January, and the first battle is the plan. It's a 5th Army plan, and it's not without merit at all. It's the intention is to do an amphibious landing to the rear at Anzio to threaten the German rear. Now, if you look historically, actually, the one example I've come across that matches it almost exactly in terms of terrain, forces, etc., is the Incheon landing in Korea by MacArthur, where he does a similar thing, similar scale and distance, and it works really well. He gets behind the North Koreans and they withdraw northwards. Unfortunately, the Germans don't panic. They land and they go, okay, fine, there's people behind us. They're experienced and they're comfortable, and they realise that there's no point panicking. We're going to deal with this as it happens. So, essentially, what you have is a series of sequential attacks. So they start off with McCreary's Corps in the south, and they make some good progress over the Garigliano and seize some of the high ground there. Unfortunately, the 46th Division failed slightly further to the north. You then have the 36th Division and the 34th Division. Remember, they're crossing. One's crossing the. They're both crossing the river. One's getting up onto Cassino, and the other one is trying to cross the Rapido. And then the French Expeditionary Corps go further round to the north, up into the mountains, and achieve some success there. So whilst that is happening, you then have the landing at Anzio, and the 5th Army order is the order that's been given to the 5th Army is to seize and secure a bridgehead in the vicinity of Anzio, advance and secure the Colli Laziali, so i.e. the Alban Hills, and then be prepared to advance on Rome. Now, they haven't got sufficient forces to do that, and the 6th Corps order is reduced down to seize and secure bridgehead and advance on the Colli Laziali. And the sort of passing words from Clark to Lucas is, don't stick your neck out, Johnny. I did it at Salerno and got into trouble. So friend Lucas then lands, and essentially they sit tight and they spend a week or so building up. Whilst the landing is going on, that is where Clark then orders the 36th Division to re-attack over the Rapido. So they do one failed attack, and then because he's concerned of about the landings, he orders them to go again. And that's the controversy, and the blame sits, I think, fairly with Clark and also Keyes, the Corps commander. He doesn't give sufficient resources to the 36th Texas Division, who effectively try to get across with just infantry and fail, which is a bit of a tragedy, to be honest. And then the next phase is the breakout. So 29th to the 2nd of February, we then have 2 breakouts. So you have the British trying to punch up towards Campiglione, and hard fighting. They reach 2nd Battalion Sherwood Foresters, just make it to the railway line at Campellione before they're thrown back. So they end up with a finger stuck up there. And then the Americans try to do the same towards Cisterna. They lead with the Rangers, so they're like their version of commandos. They try and infiltrate through a series of ditches towards Cisterna, get met by Panzer Grenadiers who are armed with tanks and machine guns, and they come off second best. Once that happens, the Germans then obviously counterattack and push back into to seal off the landing, and that's essentially the end of the first battle. It does draw German reserves from France, so they've brought some more divisions down into Italy, but it does mean that we've got a small lodgement at Anzio. We've got a small lodgement by 10 Corps, and we've got a bit of Cassino, but we haven't captured the whole thing at all. And as von Senger says of the attacks, basically because they were sequential attacks, they were easily defeated, and significant casualties on both sides, but it doesn't achieve a breakthrough as required. We then move on to the second battle, and this is where Clark again is going to have another go at trying to fight his way through to Cassino. He's got the Freyberg's New Zealand Corps. Now, the New Zealand Corps has been cobbled together. Freyberg's an extremely brave officer, Victoria Cross winner. He's well known. He's very popular with the New Zealanders, but he's been elevated to become a corps commander. It's not a proper corps. It's been cobbled together. So New Zealand, so the New Zealand Corps is an ad hoc organisation that's being created. Under him, he's got a chap called Tuka, 4th Indian Division, who's a very effective officer. And Tuka's idea is he wants to continue what the French were doing, and Juan is continue pushing through round the Tyrol up to the north to get round the Germans. But Freyberg says no, we're not going to do that. He said, right, I want you to attack the monastery. The monastery has been incorporated into the German defensive line. They've removed all the relics and pictures and all the treasures out of it in September, I think. Most of it got taken to Rome, some of which I think went to Goering's personal collection. The German, von Senger in Italy, has been quite clear about it. He's insisted there's no German troops actually in the monastery itself. The Allies are convinced there are troops in there. People fly over it and say that they've seen troops in there. Other people fly over it and say, well, I couldn't see anybody in there. So there's a degree of controversy about whether the Germans were in it or not. I don't think they were. But anyway, Tuka says, if you want me to assault that, it's... and he sent one of his officers to Naples, who finds a book in a bookshop that tells him the walls are 30 feet thick. He says, you're going to have to smash the walls for me because I'm not going to be able to get through that. So he says, right, I want that bombed if you're going to order me to attack it. Freyberg says, okay, well, I can't authorise that. Fires it up to Clark. Clark says, no, I'm not going to authorise that. Fires it up to Alexander. Alexander says, okay, if you need it destroyed, then we'll bomb it. So there's agreement then that the monastery will be bombed, and that is what is going to happen. So there's a sketch map view. So again, looking towards Cassino town, you can see the town there, Route 6. Number 3, that's the railway station. So come into the story. You've then got 0.593. Now, where the number 2 is, that's the top end of Snake's Head Ridge. The American 34th Division have got themselves up there. They thought they'd captured 0.593. They hadn't. The Indians take over, 4th Indian Division, and they've got to capture 0.593 before they move on and then capture the monastery. So it's quite a big ask. Those that have been over the terrain will know how difficult it is. So that's a view from the side, and of course they get the authorization. So on the 15th, then the monastery is bombed. The attack essentially is 4th Indian Division. Don't get terribly far, to be honest. They really struggle to get forward because there's a breakdown between the American Army Air Force and the New Zealand Division. The ground forces aren't ready when the Air Force bomb it on the 15th. The ground forces aren't ready. And then on the 16th, Chuka is trying to coordinate his attack. Well, I say it's Chuka, it's not, because he's fallen out through illness. So it's now his second in command, Brigadier Dimmerline, who's now commanding his division. The New Zealand division attack, it's mainly just the Maori battalion, go up the railway line and reach the railway station. And that's an epic attack by a single battalion up the railway line. They get to the railway station, but they don't get any further, and then have to withdraw. So effectively, that's the sort of end of the second battle. Disjointed execution, and of course, whilst that is going on, the key activity happening up at Anzio is Fishfang, which is where the Germans are now attacking down from Campellione and down into Cisterna. So those two objectives that the Allies had tried to take, they're now fighting their way back down there. And Hitler realizes the second front is coming, and he says, if we can wipe them out at Anzio, there won't be an invasion anywhere else. So it's a big effort. 17th of October is the crisis point at Anzio, and effectively it's naval gunfire and artillery that stops the Germans from proceeding. And that's the end of the second battle. Bit of a shambles, not a great success. The things that happened. So Truscott, Lucas is sacked, and Truscott replaces him as commander of the 6th Corps because he's felt that his command hasn't been aggressive enough. Truscott is an excellent officer. He's started with the formation of the American Rangers, so they're equivalent of the commandos. He's an armored officer. He's fought well as a divisional commander, and he's now been put in command of 6th Corps in their beachhead. But effectively, Anzio now sits down and becomes, if you like, a bit of a static trench war for this phase. The Germans conduct a relief in place as well. So Heydrich and his 1st Fallschirmjäger division come in. So again, we've now got Fallschirmjäger fighting in amongst the actual town of Cassino itself. And this is where we're now focused on the third battle. And Mark Clark is still focused. His focus is still on saving Anzio and making sure it remains a success. And Stalin is now starting to put pressure on, saying to the Allies, "Come on, let's get forward. You're not doing anything in Italy." So he thinks the whole thing's stagnated and they're not working hard enough. So New Zealand Corps come up with what they call Operation Dickens, which is their code name for this next battle. And again, variation on a theme. What we're going to do for the third battle is continue to attack. Up on Mount Trocchia, the General Kippenberger, who's the GOC of the 2nd New Zealand Division, he has the misfortune to step on an anti-personnel mine and lose a foot on the 2nd of March. He's an extremely popular commander. He's helped sort out the furlough mutinies. So that's not a good start. Anyway, the plan is simply we're going to bomb the town, but we're going to change our axis of attack. And you can see the two divisions coming, the 4th and the 2nd Indian Division, 2nd New Zealand Division, attacking from the north. And so it's going to be, with the inset there, you can see New Zealand's pushing in first to seize Castle Hill and pushing on to Objective 3, which is the railway. And then the 4th Indian Division are going to push up past there through to Hangman's Hill and then on to the monastery. And then there's going to be an armoured force is going to come all the way around up the Cavendish Road, which has been secretly prepared whilst this operation is going on, ready to join up at the monastery. And of course, these things never quite work out like that. They've had 21 days of no rain, of rain, which means there's been no flying by the air forces, a limited support there. So when it kicks off on the 15th, the town is bombed, and they come in and they bomb the town very effectively. They also bomb some other towns that aren't near Cassino, but that's just navigation errors and cause casualties to French and American troops. But that just happens. What it does, though, is it creates significant obstacles in the actual town itself, which is not helpful. By the 16th of March, Castle Hill has been captured by the Indians, and they push on up to Hangman's Hill. So up onto where that figure 4 is, and I'll just try and show it in relief here, so you can see from the flanking view, Castle Hill is number 2, and they've pushed on all the way up to number 4. But what you've got is the element up on number 4 that hanging on there. They've got Germans surrounding them all around them. 17th of March, the 2nd New Zealand Division captured the railway station, so that's captured now. So that's excellent. And then on the 19th, Operation Revenge, which is the move of the armour up the Cavendish Road. So it's about 30-odd vehicles, a mixture of Stuarts and Sherman tanks, move up through Cavendish Road, which is an epic of engineering, I think, done in total secrecy. Germans don't know about it, but it gets right up, goes behind point 593 to the rear of where the monastery is, and then they get set about by the Fallschirmjäger at short range. And unfortunately, because there's no infantry support, because they can't generate enough infantry from Snakeshead Ridge to come and support it, it fails. The troops up on Hangman's Hill, remember, they got up there on the 17th. They've had airdrops of food and water to try and keep them alive. Patrols have tried to go up to link up with them. They eventually withdraw on the 25th, back down to Castle Hill. And that's essentially the end of the third battle. So disjointed execution, and the objectives haven't been achieved. So we haven't captured the monastery. We don't own the whole town yet. In amongst the rubble, the Germans are still fighting and surviving. But whilst this is going on, 15th Army Group concurrently are planning a bigger attack. And what they're trying to do is generate that combat power where we've got the 3-to-1 advantage. And as Brigadier Birdie Smith, who wrote a couple of excellent books, his take on it: the third battle was an untidy muddle, a bloody encounter between two sides with soldiers both often confused and frightened and invariably deafened by the noise. So great stuff there. Right, that leads us, we're getting close to the end now, the fourth battle. So this is drawn up by Harding, who is Alexander's chief of staff, extremely capable and bright officer. And the plan is simplistically shown here. 8th Army, so we're going to shuffle everyone across. 8th Army is going to punch up the Liri Valley, and then 5th Army is going to cut them off behind Valmontone, and then between the two pincers, we'll destroy the 10th Army. That's the plan in outline. Now, things are never quite as simple as straightforward as a few arrows on the map. Mark Clark, he's aware of the plans. He's sort of buys into it to a certain extent, but he's also drawn up a number of other contingencies. So he's got 4 other options. Buffalo is the main one, obviously, following Arrow 2, but he's also got Operation Turtle as well, which is to head northwards towards the Caesar, what's called the Caesar line. So 5th Army is now shifted into this really narrow corridor. You can see the 2 Corps and the French Expeditionary Corps sat down at the mouth of Garigliano, and then 6th Corps is now rammed with, there's more troops put in there, including British troops, have been in the Anzio beachhead throughout. And that's where Mark Clark is sort of focused. So that's always ready to go. And then we have stacked up to the in the 8th Army sector. We've got 1st Canadian Corps, 13th Corps, 2nd Polish Corps, all ready to do the attack, and I will talk about those in a little more detail. The red dotted lines you might be able to see these are the potential withdrawal routes of the 10th Army. So it is possible for them to not only go up the main road to Valmontone, but they can actually also escape up through the other mountain passes that way. And part of the criticism perhaps of this plan is we don't have troops, French type troops, mountain troops, cutting across those escape routes. So that's the outline of the plan. There's an excellent Operation Nunton, which is the deception plan. So the 5th and 8th Armies issue training programs that run to the 21st of May. So that clearly shows that we're going to do lots of training until 21st of May and not do anything before then. The French Expeditionary Corps are wearing British helmets, and we've got British signallers with them for communication. The Canadian Corps is simulating an amphibious force with the 36th Texas Division. And they've removed tack symbols and gone into hides. Lots of restrictions on recce. So that means the Polish Corps, unfortunately, they're not able to recce their attacks. So they have to basically fight from a position of limited knowledge. But what it does mean is that key commanders are away. So on the German side, you've got von Wietinghoff is away on leave, von Senger's away on leave, Bader's in Germany, Kesselring's chief of staff, he's sick, and von Senger's chief of staff is sent home on sick leave as well. So classic old thing, actually, our deception plans work really well, our forces are well set, and the Germans don't think it's happening now. They think it's going to happen later in the month, some other time. So their intelligence fails. But obviously we kick off earlier on the 11th with the main attack. So it starts off in the centre with Kirkman's 13 Corps. Kirkman, artillery officer, he's the mastermind behind the fire plan for Battle of El Alamein. So he's well liked and is promoted. Burns, 1st Canadian, he's intellectual, lacks charisma, but luckily he's got some divisional commanders below him, like Hofmeister, who's really good, who can talk to the blokes. So he's a bit indifferent. Anders, the Polish Corps, just as a quick diversion, it's been epic. So Anders is he was Tsarist Army cavalry officer in the Great War. In the Second World War, he's been captured by the Russians when Poland's been partitioned. He's been sent off into exile in Russia. When the Russians decide they're fighting the Germans and not alongside them, the Polish are able to raise a corps. Anders then basically brings, almost like Moses, leads the Poles from Siberia and wherever else they are, down through Kazakhstan, through Iran. They get equipped by the British. They come through Palestine, significant number of the ones who are Jewish, then run off to the forces to help defend them from the Arabs who are causing trouble there. But then he brings his corps into the battle here. And so we've got 2nd Polish Corps under General Anders, and they're going to have the delightful job of trying to capture the monastery. So simplistically then, Kirkman fights through and crosses the Rapido where the 36th Division had failed on its 2 previous attempts. It's pretty hard fighting. They don't get through quickly. The Polish launch their attack from the top, trying to capture first point 593 and then over onto the monastery itself. And that takes, they don't capture the monastery until I think it's the 19th of 19th of the month that of May that they actually capture the monastery, which, to be honest, at that stage the Germans have now decided they're going to withdraw from it. So it's a little bit symbolic. The stars of the operation are the French Expeditionary Corps, who have had a really tough fight to start with, but they are up and they've punched through the Hitler von Senger line by about the 19th of May, and they are through and past that German defensive line, and that's the thing that actually unlocks, I think, the Cassino battle. Lees then mucks it up, to be honest. He tries to push 1st Canadian Corps and 13th Corps up the Liry Valley together. And when you look at the road structure, there's insufficient. There's insufficient for a division. Just in terms of frontage, at El Alamein, the Corps frontage was about 15 kilometres. And here we've got 3 corps in about less than that in mountainous terrain. So it's the troops are really jammed in tight. And that enables, at this stage, Bader and our friend Heydrich, who are the 2 forward divisional commanders, they effectively are able to fight a fighting withdrawal back, and it's quite easy to withdraw if you're not being pressed hard, and because you've got troops trying to fight their way through and jostling to get forward, they're able to delay, break contact, and just keep falling back, just staying out of reach and not getting trapped by the Allied advance. So it's a pretty slow, ponderous advance, unfortunately, by the 8th Army. And it pains me to say the French are leaping ahead and putting us to shame. And then we come obviously onto the key bit, which is the breakout from Cassino, from Anzio itself, and this is meant to be the bit that's going to seal the deal, as it were. So you've got Arrow 1, you've got the Bish breaking out to the north. That's a holding attack to draw the German reserves and attention. And then Arrow 2, you have them fighting, and it's Truscott who's pushing his troops. The Germans are fighting extremely hard at this stage. He gets towards a small town adjacent to Valmontone, and then at that stage, then gets the orders from Clark to stop and to activate Turtle. And he cannot believe he's been told this. There's some background here where they think that Clark gives the order, then leaves his command post, and apparently the American custom was that you can question the order if you can speak to the commander directly. If you can't get hold of him, and Clark now is on what's called battlefield circulation, going to visit somebody else, you then have to carry out the order as described. So spitting feathers, Truscott then goes, right, okay, so they stop on the, I think it's the 23rd. It takes them a couple of days because you can't just shift your axis as simply as that. And then on the 25th, they then start attacking on Arrows 3. So you can see there's 2 arrows towards the Caesar line. And effectively what they're doing is they're now fighting through the most heavily defended bit of the Caesar line. And the unit that actually comes forward and unlocks that is our friends of 36th Division, who have been brought up. They've been landed behind, and they actually find the seam between the German defenders and are actually able to punch through where that further blue arrow beyond the Caesar line. And it's the 36th Division that creates the opening, and that enables then for the Americans to then advance into Rome and fight through and seize Rome by the 4th. The Germans, meanwhile, have escaped past Valmontone and also to those roads I indicated to the north. The Air Force hasn't been able to stop those Germans withdrawing. So what does it mean? Well, Mark Clark gets his picture next to Rome. We get Cassino, which is a wreck. And effectively, it means that the Italian campaign will continue. But it was ever it was thus. I think, to be honest, the Operation Diadem, the 4th battle, did achieve pretty much most of what it needed to do. I think the criticism with Clark might have been, instead of drawing his punch and then attacking to the Caesar line, was actually continues to Valmontone and then turn left and then head up that way, because that would have been a quicker and easier way. So world papers mean that on the 5th, we've captured Rome, which is the first Axis capital to be captured. So that's a good thing. And then on the 6th, it's D-Day, Overlord, and then it really is the D-Day Dodgers and what are they doing there? So, in summary then, was it worth it? I think yes. And the reason why is that it ensured the US engagement in the European theatre of operations. It's what you need to remember is, having dealt with the enemy in North Africa, there is still a significant pull from Admiral King and other people that want focus on the Pacific theatre. And so therefore, by ensuring we had a plan in the European theatre that kept the Americans engaged, that's really critical. It also opens up Med for shipping, which, as Alan Brooks says in his diaries, means that he quotes 1 million more tons of shipping available. I don't know how that breaks down, but it's significant. It also means that the Russians continue to attrit the Wehrmacht on the Eastern Front. It also prevents what the Americans had 2 plans, Roundup, and I've forgotten the other one, which was effectively attacking from Britain directly in 1943 onto the French coast. If we tried to do that with the German forces not written down as they were, I think that would have failed massively. It got Italy out of the war. It expanded the air campaign. And also we gained some invaluable experience. Operation Husky, Operation Shingle, people are learning how to do combined arms operations, particularly the landings, amphibious landings. If we hadn't had that hard practice, I don't think the Normandy landings would have gone as well. And so we gained experience there. And we did fix some German divisions. It does mean afterwards, though, that it's a painful old slog.